Bournemouth ʻbɔːrnməθ is a large coastal resort town on the south coast of England directly to the east of the Jurassic Coast, a 96-mile World Heritage Site. According to the 2011 census, the town has a population of 183,491, making it the largest settlement in Dorset, with Poole to the west and Christchurch in the east. Bournemouth forms the South East Dorset conurbation, which has a total population of over 465,000. Before it was founded in 1810 by Lewis Tregonwell, the area was a deserted heathland occasionally visited by fishermen and smugglers. Initially marketed as a health resort, the town received a boost when it appeared in Dr. Granville's book, The Spas of England. Bournemouth's growth really accelerated with the arrival of the railway, and it became a recognised town in 1870. Historically part of Hampshire, it joined Dorset with the reorganisation of local government in 1974. Since 1997, the town has been administered by a unitary authority, giving it autonomy from Dorset County Council, although it remains part of the ceremonial county. The local council is Bournemouth Borough Council. The town centre has notable Victorian architecture, and the 202-foot spire of St Peter's Church, one of 3 Grade I-listed churches in the borough, is a local landmark. Bournemouth's location has made it a popular destination for tourists, attracting over 5 million visitors annually with its beaches and popular nightlife. The town is also a regional centre of business, home of the Bournemouth International Centre (BIC), and a financial sector that is worth more than £1,000 million in gross value added. Toponymy. The first mention of Bournemouth comes in the Christchurch cartulary of 1406, where a monk describes how a large fish, 18 feet long, was washed up at Bournemouth in October of that year and taken to the manor of Wick. 6 days later, a portion of the fish was collected by a canon from Christchurch Priory and taken away as tithe. Bournemouth, however, was purely a geographic reference to the uninhabited area around the mouth of the small river, which, in turn, drained the heathland between the towns of Poole and Christchurch. The word bourne, meaning a small stream, is a derivative of burner, Old English for a brook. For the latter half of the 16th century, Bournemouth seems to be preferred, being recorded as such in surveys and reports of the period, but this appears to have been shortened to Bourne after the area had started to develop. A travel guide published in 1831 calls the place Bourne Cliff, or Tregonwell's Bourne, after its founder. The Spas of England, published 10 years later, calls it simply Bourne, as does an 1838 edition of the Hampshire Advertiser. In the late 19th century, Bournemouth became predominant, although its two-word form appears to have remained in use up until at least the early 20th century, turning up on a 1909 Ordnance map. History. In the 12th century, the region around the mouth of the River Bourne was part of the hundred of Holdenhurst. The hundred later became the Liberty of Westover when it was also extended to include the settlements of North Ashley, Muscliffe, Muckleshall, Throop, Iford, Pokesdown, Tuckton and Wick, and incorporated into the manor of Christchurch. Although the Dorset and Hampshire region surrounding it had been the site of human settlement for thousands of years, Westover was largely a remote and barren heathland before 1800. In 1574 the Earl of Southampton noted that the area was devoid of all habitation, and as late as 1795 the Duke of Rutland recorded that, on this barren and uncultivated heath there was not a human to direct us. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries the borough of Bournemouth would grow to encompass a number of ancient settlements along the River Stour, including Longham, where a skull thought to be 5,500 years old was found in 1932. Bronze Age burials near Moordown, and the discovery of Iron Age pottery on the East Cliff in 1969 suggest there may have been settlements during that period. Hengistbury Head, added to the borough in 1932, was the site of a much older Paleolithic encampment. During the latter half of the 16th century, James Blunt, 6th Baron Mountjoy, began mining for alum in the area, and at one time part of the heath was used for hunting, although by the late 18th century little evidence of either event remained. No one lived at the mouth of the Bourne River, and the only regular visitors to the area before the 19th century were a few fishermen, turf cutters and gangs of smugglers. Prior to the Christchurch Enclosures Act 1802, more than 70% of the Westover area was common land. The Act, together with the Enclosure Commissioners' Award of 1805, transferred 5,000 acres into the hands of 5 private owners, including James Harris, 1st Earl of Malmesbury, and Sir George Vision Taps. In 1809 the Taps Arms public house appeared on the heath. A few years later, in 1812, the first official residents, retired Army officer Lewis Tregonwell and his wife, moved into the new home built on land purchased from Taps. The area was well known to Tregonwell, who, during the Napoleonic Wars, spent much of his time searching the heath and coastline for French invaders and smugglers, anticipating that people would come to the area to indulge in the newly fashionable pastime of sea bathing, an activity with perceived health benefits. Tregonwell built a series of villas on his land between 1816 and 1822, which he hoped to let out. The common belief that pine-scented air was good for lung conditions, and in particular tuberculosis, prompted Tregonwell and Taps to plant hundreds of pine trees. These early attempts to promote the town as a health resort meant that by the time Tregonwell had died in 1832, Bournemouth had grown into a small community with a scattering of houses, villas and cottages. The town would ultimately grow up around the scattered pines and tree-lined walk to the beach, later to become known as the Invalids' Walk. After the death of Taps in 1835, his son Sir George William Taps Jervis inherited his father's estate. He hired a young local architect, Benjamin Ferry, to develop the coastal area on the east side of the stream. Bournemouth's first hotel, later to become part of the Royal Bath Hotel, opened in 1838 and is one of the few buildings designed by Ferry still standing. Bournemouth started to grow at a faster rate as Taps Jervis began developing the area similarly to the South Coast resorts of Weymouth and Brighton. Despite enormous investment, the town's share of the market remained modest. In 1841, Taps Jervis invited the physician and writer Augustus Granville to stay. Granville was the author of The Spas of England, which described health resorts around the country, and as a result of his visit he included a chapter on Bournemouth in the second edition of his book. The publication of the book, and the increase in visitors seeking the medicinal use of seawater and the pine-scented air, helped the town to grow and establish itself as an early tourist destination. In the 1840s, Benjamin Ferry was replaced by Decimus Burton, whose plans for Bournemouth included the construction of a garden alongside the Bourne stream, an idea first mooted by Granville. The fields south of the road crossing were drained and laid out with shrubberies and walks. Many of these paths, including the Invalids' Walk, remain in the town today. A second suggestion of Granville's, of sanatorium, was completed in 1855 and greatly raised Bournemouth's profile as a place for recuperation. At a time when the most convenient way to arrive in the town was by sea, a pier was considered to be a necessity. Holdenhurst Parish parish council were reluctant to find the money, and an attempt to raise the money privately in 1847 had only succeeded in financing a small 100-feet jetty. The Bournemouth Improvement Act of 1856 granted greater financial autonomy to the town, and a pier was approved that year. A number of wooden structures were built before an 838-feet cast iron designed by Eugenius Birch was completed in 1880. Under the Act, a board of 13 commissioners was established to build and organize the expanding infrastructure of the town, such as paving, sewers, drainage, street lighting and street cleaning. The arrival of the railways in 1870 precipitated a massive growth in seaside and summer visitors to the town, especially from the Midlands and London. In 1880 the town had a population of 17,000, but by 1900, when railway connections to Bournemouth were at the most developed, the town's population had risen to 60,000 and it had become a favourite location for visiting artists and writers. The town was improved greatly during this period through the efforts of Sir Merton Russell Coates, the town's mayor and a local philanthropist, who helped to establish the town's first library and museum. The Russell Coates Art Gallery and Amp Museum was housed in his mansion, and after his death it was given to the town. Bournemouth became a municipal borough in 1890 and a county borough in 1900. As Bournemouth's growth increased in the early 20th century, the town centre spawned theatres, cafes, 2 Art Deco cinemas and more hotels. Other new buildings included the War Memorial in 1921 and a Bournemouth Pavilion. The town's concert hall and Grand Theatre finished in 1925. The town escaped heavy bombing during the Second World War, but the seafront incurred great damage when it was fortified against invasion. The cast iron lampposts and benches along the front were removed and melted down for munitions, as was much of the superstructure from both Bournemouth and Boscombe piers before they were breached to prevent the use by enemy ships. The larger amounts of barbed wire and anti-tank obstacles along the beach, and the mines at the foot of the chines, took 2 years to remove when peace was finally achieved. The Royal National Lifeboat Institution stationed an inshore lifeboat at Bournemouth between 1965 and 1972. Coverage for the area has otherwise been provided from Poole Lifeboat Station. The Bournemouth International Centre, a large conference and exhibition centre, was constructed near the seafront in 1984, and in the following year Bournemouth became the first town in the United Kingdom to introduce and use CCTV cameras for public street-based surveillance. In 1993, the IRA orchestrated a terrorist attack in the town centre. The only injuries sustained were minor ones, but over £1 million in damage was caused. The waterfront complex, which was intended to hold an IMAX cinema, was constructed on the seafront in 1998. The 19 meters high concrete and smoked glass building featured a wavy roof design, but was despised by residents and visitors alike because it blocked views of the bay and the Isle of Purbeck. In 2005 it was voted the most hated building in England in a 10,000-person poll conducted by the Channel 4 programme Demolition, and was pulled down in spring 2013. The site is to be used as an outdoor event arena. The council still plan a larger redevelopment of the site and adjoining council land in the long term. In 2012 Bournemouth was unsuccessful in its bid for city status, losing out to Chelmsford in competition with 26 other towns to commemorate Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee. Governance. Historically, Bournemouth was part of Hampshire, with neighbouring Poole, just to the west of the border, in Dorset. At the time of the 1974 local government reorganisation, it was considered desirable that the whole of the Poole-Bournemouth urban area should be part of the same county. Bournemouth therefore became part of the non-metropolitan county of Dorset on 1 April 1974. On 1 April 1997, Bournemouth became a unitary authority, independent from Dorset County Council. For the purposes of the lieutenancy, it remains part of the ceremonial county of Dorset. For local elections, the district is divided into 18 wards, and a Bournemouth Borough Council is elected every 4 years. In the 2011 local elections, the Conservatives held overall control, winning 45 of the available 51 seats. The council elects a mayor and deputy mayor annually. For 2014-15, the mayor is Chris Main. Bournemouth is represented by 2 parliamentary constituencies in the House of Commons, Bournemouth East and Bournemouth West. In the 2010 general election, the former was held for the Conservatives by Tobias Ellwood with 48.4% of the vote, while the latter was also held for the Conservatives by Conor Burns with 45.1%. Geography. Bournemouth is about 94 miles southwest of London at 50.7200 degrees north, 1.8800 degrees west, 50.7200 minus 1.8800. The borough borders the neighbouring boroughs of Poole in Christchurch to the west and east respectively, and the East Dorset district to the north. Poole Bay lies to the south. The River Stour forms a natural boundary to the north and east, terminating at Christchurch Harbour, while the River Bourne rises in Poole and flows through the middle of Bournemouth town centre, into the English Channel. The towns of Poole, Bournemouth and Christchurch form the South East Dorset conurbation with a combined population of over 400,000. Bournemouth is both a retail and commercial centre. Areas within Bournemouth include Boscombe, Kinson, Southbourne, Springbourne, Throop, Westbourne and Winton. The area's geology has little variety, comprising almost entirely of Eocene clays which prior to urbanisation supported a heathland environment. Patches of the original heath still remain, notably Turbury Common, a 36-hectare site, much of which is designated a site of special scientific interest. This heathland habitat is home to all 6 species of native reptile, the Dartford warbler, and some important flora such as sundew and bog asphodel. Small populations of Exmoor pony and Shetland cattle help to maintain the area. Bournemouth is directly north of Old Harry Rocks, the easternmost end of the Jurassic Coast. 96 miles of coastline designated a World Heritage Site in 2001. Bournemouth's own coastline stretches from Sandbanks to Christchurch Harbour and comprises mainly sandy beaches backed by gravel and sandy clay cliffs. These cliffs are cut by a number of chines which provide natural access to the shore. At the easternmost point lies Hengistbury Head, a narrow peninsula that forms the southern shore of Christchurch Harbour. It is a local nature reserve and the site of a Bronze Age settlement. Climate. Like all of the UK, Bournemouth has a temperate oceanic climate with moderate variation in annual and daily temperatures, cool summers, and frequent overcast skies. From 1981 to 2010, the annual mean temperature was 10 to 11 degrees Celsius. The warmest months are July and August, which have an average temperature range of 12 to 22 degrees Celsius, while the coolest months are January and February, which have an average temperature range of 1 to 8 degrees Celsius. Average rainfall in Bournemouth is around 800 mm annually, well below below the national average of 1,126 mm. Since 1960, temperature extremes as measured at Bournemouth Herne Airport have ranged from 34.1 degrees Celsius in August 1990, down to -13.4 degrees Celsius in January 1963. The lowest temperature recorded in recent years was -10.4 degrees Celsius in December 2010. Demography. The 2011 census records the population of Bournemouth as 183,491, comprising 91,386 males and 92,105 females, which equates to 49.8% and 50.2% of the population respectively. The mean average age of all persons is 40 years. With 4,000 residents per square kilometre, Bournemouth has the highest population density of any authority in the southwest region, and is the 8th most populated. Much of the population, 83.8%, describe their ethnicity as white British, while other white groups account for a further 8.1%. Asian groups, Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Chinese and other Asian, make up 3.9%. Black British, Black African, Black Caribbean and other black groups form 1.0% of the population. Those of a mixed race make up 2.3% of the population, and 0.9% are from other ethnic groups. Christians made up 57.1% of the population, but 30% of residents said they had no religion and 7.8% refused to say whether they were religious or not. Muslims were a 1.8%, Buddhists, Hindus and Jews each had a 0.7% share, Sikhs were 0.1%, and other religions made up 0.7%. Of all Bournemouth residents aged 16 or over, 19.1% had no qualifications at all, although 35% said they had between 1 and 4 O-levels, CSEs, GCSEs or equivalent, and 36.5% have more than 5 O-level equivalents, and A-level are 2 to 3 as levels. Those with an NVQ level 1 comprise 8.0% of the population, while 15.2% have a level 2 NVQ, a City and Guilds craft certificate, BTEC, a general diploma. Just over 20% of residents had 2 or more A-levels, 4 or more as levels, or an advanced diploma, while 15.8% possessed a degree, such as a BA, a BSc, or a higher degree such as an MA, a PhD. An NVQ level 4 or 5, HNC, HND, higher BTEC, a higher diploma, is held by 4.2%, and a professional qualification is held by 13.9% of residents. An apprenticeship has been completed by 6.3% of the population, while 16.9% have some other work related to vocational qualification, and 8.3% hold a foreign qualification. Historically, Bournemouth has suffered from negative rates of natural increase and has relied on immigration to maintain population growth. In 2007, however, births exceeded deaths for the first time, and this trend has continued through to 2011. This, coupled with a substantial increase in people moving into the area, has led to a sharp rise in the resident population since 2001. Of the total population, 3.3% are 85 or over, compared to 2.2% nationally. However, the largest group of people moving into the area are students in the 16 to 24-year age group, and 9% of the current population are between 20 and 24. In England, this age group accounts for only 7%. Economy. Similarly to the rest of Dorset, Bournemouth's economy is primarily in the service sector, which employed 95% of the workforce in 2010. This was 10% higher than the average employment in the service sector for Great Britain and 11% higher than the South West. Of particular importance of the financial and public service sectors, which through 2011 continued to show sustained growth. Compared to the rest of the country, Bournemouth performed well in these two areas but underperformed in transport and communications. The smallest geographical region for which gross value added information is available is the NUTS3 area, Bournemouth and Poole. The latest figures, as of 2012, are for the year 2009, which showed that the Bournemouth and Poole area enjoyed the strongest annualized growth in the southwest region. In 2009, the southwest regional accounts showed that the financial services sector in Bournemouth was worth £1,031.8 million in gross value added. Important employers in this sector include JP Morgan, Nationwide Building Society, and the Liverpool Victoria, Tata Consultancy Services, and Reus Insurance Companies. The manufacturing sector is predominantly based in neighbouring Poole, but still employed 2% of the workforce in 2010 and 2.6% in 2011. Tourism is also important to the local economy. In 2011, domestic and overseas visitors made more than 5.6 million trips to the town and spent over £460 million between them. The equivalent of 8,531 full-time jobs exist as a result, which accounts for 15% of all employment in the town. Bournemouth seafront is one of the UK's biggest attractions, with 4.5 million visitors in 2011. RNLI lifeguards provide seasonal coverage of Bournemouth's beaches, with a third of all town centre businesses in the leisure industry. Bournemouth has a booming nightlife economy and is a popular destination for stag and hen parties. These party-goers contribute £125 million a year to the economy and support 4,000 jobs. In 2010, the town was awarded a Purple Flag for providing a wide variety of nighttime activities while maintaining the safety of both residents and visitors. An independent report published in 2012 indicates there has been a rise in antisocial behavior, which it attributes to the increase in nightlife. Those of working age make up approximately 65% of Bournemouth's population, and of these, 74.6% are economically active, although not necessarily employed within the Bournemouth area. Industry in Bournemouth employed more than 76,400 people in 2011, but not all of these were Bournemouth residents. Of those employed in Bournemouth-based industries, 29.32% were employed in the public administration, education and health sector. This compares favourably with Dorset, the southwest region, and the country as a whole. As do the other large sectors: distribution, hotels and AMP, restaurants, and banking, finance and insurance. 37.2% of Bournemouth's resident population are employed full-time, while 13.3% are employed part-time. An additional 7.1% full-time workers are self-employed, 3.1% are self-employed part-time. Full-time students with jobs account for 5.3% and 3.8% are unemployed. The shopping streets are mostly pedestrianised, with modern shopping malls, Victorian arcades and a large selection of bars, clubs and cafes. North of the centre there is an out-of-town shopping complex called Castle Point. The 41-acre site has 40 units and was the largest shopping centre in the UK when it opened in 2003. Other major shopping areas are situated in the districts of Westbourne and Boscombe.